Time Warner Cable is pleased to be an underwriting sponsor for Carolina Week.
We've got word from the Chancellor. Tuition is going up. The question is, how much?
And the man who changed the digital world, will Apple continue his tradition?
In sports, the Tar Heels have scored enough to win so far, but will it continue?
Weathercaster Tom Miners will tell us if the rain will finally let up this weekend.
And it was all about getting back to grassroots with bluegrass and country. We'll have that story.
Carolina Week starts right now.
From the James F. Goodman Studio in the School of Journalism and Mass Communication at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, connecting campus and community, this is Carolina Week.
Get ready, because tuition is going up. And this time, it's not an if, but how much. Good evening. I'm Kathleen Whitty.
And I'm Preston Jones. Officials are saying tonight the university just can't cut anymore. And as Patrick Wright reports, that leaves higher tuition.
Like most UNC seniors, Zachary Toll is counting the days until graduation. But Toll isn't just worried about the job market. He's concerned for his school's future.
Oh, I'm absolutely worried. I mean, even as a senior, I want to see the system grow. I want to see the school continue to be one of the top schools in the nation.
One thing Toll says could affect that is another round of budget cuts.
If we keep cutting, budget without raising tuition or getting the money elsewhere, I think we're going to have a real hard time keeping up with the private schools that can afford to raise tuition.
So, is it time for students to pay more? We asked Chancellor Holden Thorpe.
And I've reached the conclusion that we can't have another year of no raises and budget cuts.
Some argue that out-of-state students like Toll, a Georgia resident, should pay more to attend the university. Of these 8 top public institutions, UNC's out-of-state tuition is the cheapest, more than $10,000 less than the University of Michigan's, for example. But Thorpe says the same holds true for in-state tuition, and that both groups will have to pay more to keep the university in the top tier.
This place is important, and it's important to all of you, and that's the case that we'll be making through the tuition process and into the legislative session, much more forcefully than we have the last 3 years.
Many agree that the only way to keep classrooms like Carroll 111 full of eager students is to raise tuition. They say the school should be willing to uphold this tradition no matter the cost.
Now we've got to fight to protect what we've got here, which is a very important thing.
And if they're not willing to pay for that, even if they can afford it, well, I think that's a shame. Because, if people aren't willing to pay, then this institution won't be able to last much longer.
Thorpe says it's still too early to put a percentage on the increase, but he and his administration plan to do what's best for the school. In Chapel Hill, I'm Patrick Wright, Carolina Week.
Now, tuition is supposed to be capped at 6.5% by policy for in-state students, but there are indications from the Board of Trustees and the administration that tuition increase could break that barrier.
Well, it's University Day, which means the university is 218 years old today. But even on a day of celebration with faculty and students marching into Memorial Hall with the performances and singing and with all that pomp and circumstance, budget cuts remained in the forefront. Today's speaker was UNC System President Tom Ross. Even though Ross was installed just last week, he's been dealing with those cuts for a while now.
The university is suffering from the effects of the prolonged economic downturn.
Ross says the university system has cut $1 billion, that's with a B, $billion from its budget over the past 5 years. For Ross's complete speech and other coverage of University Day festivities, please visit our partners at reesenews.org.
Also, as a part of University Day events, the university unveiled a marker this afternoon to remember the students who helped fight the speaker ban law in the 1960s. Alumni gathered to commemorate the historic event, and the Chancellor reminded everyone why free speech is so important to university life. Photojournalism professor Jock Lauderer captured the unveiling from the same tree he took photos from at protests in the 1960s. The granite marker will remain on the stone wall between McCorkle Place and Franklin Street, right near the spot where 2 controversial figures spoke to students in 1966. We'll have more on the speaker ban law later in the newscast.
If you're a transfer student at the university, there is a 1 in 4 chance you'll never graduate, at least not from UNC. Those are the numbers according to a Carolina Week investigation. And as Cassie Skarsha reports, university officials think they know why, and they're trying to do something about it.
Cruz Santibanez would be a junior at her old school, the University of Phoenix. But after transferring this year, she is only considered a sophomore. That's because only 24 of her 60 hours transferred.
Only a year transferred, basically, so I'm having to do another year here.
Along with losing credit, Santibanez might also need an extra semester to graduate, and she isn't alone. A 2010 university study reports that less than 55% of transfer students graduate in 4 years, compared with almost 80% for regular students. Director of Academic Advising Lee May says losing credits is an unfortunate part of transferring.
It's a tedious process of trying to match an old curriculum with a new curriculum, and some things are just not going to match up.
Transfer students from community colleges seem to have the most difficulty. Only 42% of them graduate in 4 years, and only about 75% graduate at all. Santibanez blames a lot of the difficulties on transfer students being accepted late, registering late, and having difficulties getting into the classes they need.
If I would have had the chance to apply a little earlier, maybe the process wouldn't have been so difficult.
These difficulties are part of the reason that transfer students are significantly more likely than regular students to drop out or be ineligible after their first semester. Associate Director for Undergraduate Admissions, Rebecca Egbert, says she knows things need to change.
I don't think I've seen as much momentum to get things moving and create a much better atmosphere for this particular population as I have over the last, let's say, 18 months or so.
What we really know is that it's important that we collaborate with our other campus partners in meeting the needs of this population.
In Chapel Hill, I'm Cassie Skarsha, Carolina Week.
Dean May says a coalition has been formed to evaluate the transfer process. The most important thing right now is moving the transfer application date up so that students can be accepted earlier and then register earlier. Just when this will happen, officials aren't sure.
Student Body President Mary Cooper is one step closer to helping you get home after a night out on Franklin Street, but it might take the help of Chapel Hill's mayor. Currently, on-campus students have access to plenty of transportation. They can ride a bus to get around campus or catch the P2P if it's late at night. But for off-campus students, parking is limited and it can be a long walk. Cooper's Safe Ride taxi program would give students a ride throughout Chapel Hill and charge a flat rate fee.
Heated words exchanged at the college Republicans and Young Democrats debate as the participants hit on some hot-button campus issues.
Is that people who would feel more comfortable rooming with someone of the opposite gender, particularly people who are dealing with questions about their gender identity.
If you're a great academic student and you want to come to UNC, the lack of having gender-neutral housing should not be a turn-off for you.
Out their gender, I do question whether or not you can be a great academic if you don't even know what your gender is.
The crowds booed that comment, laughed at some, and asked for explanations on others. The debate was hosted by the Dialectic and Philanthropic Societies, and both national and local issues were discussed. They hit on topics like the stimulus bill, Pakistan, and who should be elected to the Chapel Hill Town Council. One thing the college Republicans and Young Democrats did agree on, the parties must reach across the aisle and compromise.
Tonight, the legacy of Steve Jobs lives on as Apple sets a new record for pre-sales of the iPhone 4S. But after that, some are questioning the future of the Fortune 500 company. The iPhone, the iPad, the MacBook Pro, all pioneered by Apple, all designed by Steve Jobs, the mastermind who made the unthinkable portable, and all technologies Senior Cameron Parker relies on every day.
But I think he had a very unique vision for what he wanted Apple to do and what Apple's products to do, and I think he had incredibly tough standards and was very rigorous about the quality of a product.
Jobs passed away last week after a struggle with pancreatic cancer, but he leaves behind a legacy some call the eye craze, or all things eye. In memory of Steve Jobs, people will be wearing what he always wore on Friday, a black turtleneck and blue jeans. But still, without Jobs in the company, some are questioning what's going to happen to Apple. Online reports from Fox News and the New York Times say Jobs left behind 4 years of blueprints for next-generation products. UNC professor and digital media expert Penny Abernathy says that the future is all about the innovation and the products.
It was whether they can keep this progression going of innovation across multiple platforms going forward. And I think that is will be the real long-term determinant of whether Apple remains the premium brand.
Parker says the creativity of Steve Jobs isn't going anywhere.
I think it's in the leaders of Apple's hands now to sort of carry that on, but they certainly have all of the know-how and the capability to do it. So I feel pretty optimistic.
Professor Abernathy also told me creating an innovator like Steve Jobs does take time, but Apple is already on the way with their new CEO, Tim Cook. He's been with the company since 1995.
Bluegrass and country were in the air this weekend in Chatham County. We'll have that story coming up.
Today, about 1 in 5 Americans is living with a disability. Over 50 million people, including many of our friends and neighbors, teachers and co-workers, heroes and leaders. 20 years ago, the Americans with Disabilities Act guaranteed every person the right to live, work, and participate fully in the American experience. We've come a long way since then, and we are committed to making even more progress in the years ahead. Visit disability.gov to see how you can help.
The magical thing about using energy wisely is that anyone can do it. Turn off lights. Use energy-saving light bulbs. And turn off computers and game systems when not in use. Make a change and we can really fly. Grab a grown-up and go online to energy.gov/kids.
Cotton balls, duct tape, spoon, needle, thread, scalpel.
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today.
For the past few weeks, we've been telling you the story of the speaker ban law. Now we've caught our coverage speaking of the First Amendment. And along with our partners, Carolina Connection and Reese News, we've taken a hard look at the law passed in the 1960s by our state legislature.
It prohibited communists and others from speaking on campus, and eventually it was overturned on free speech grounds. We conclude our coverage tonight by talking with a man who wants to make sure we never forget.
The speaker ban controversy lives on, in the memories of those who were there, in the hearts of those who fought it, and now online as part of UNC's virtual museum project. University archivist Jay Gademore has gotten to know the history of the law, and he wants us to know it too.
To trace the history of the speaker ban exhibit using documents, and so the documents can tell their own story.
The virtual exhibit will include documents from all sides of the story, like the official invitation for known communist Herbert Aptheker to speak on campus, the Board of Trustees' refusal to allow permission, right up to the lawsuit that was filed an hour after the protest. Even handwritten hate mail addressed to protest leader Paul Dixon, calling him a communist who wanted to ruin young lives.
The Virtual Museum of UNC was created just to sort of give people highlights of UNC's history, the warts and all.
Gademore says the exhibit is meant for a general audience, but he especially hopes that students will take a look.
Well, I hope students can see that, their counterparts 50 years ago were doing protests and they fought for what they believed is right. And
not that students today aren't organizing protests, they're just using a different forum.
A lot of the protests are organized on Facebook. There are websites now, emails from the Chancellor back and forth. We need to start preserving those emails, web pages, Facebook pages, Twitter accounts, or in 50 years from now, we're going to have a difficulty telling the story.
Gademore says that's his next project, tracking down the history being made today. After all, he agrees with those First Amendment activists of the 60s.
We need to hear all different ideas so we can find the truth, and I've always liked that.
Yeah. Speaker ban law exhibit went live today. You can find it at museum.unc.edu. Now, what were the legislatures thinking when they passed that speaker ban law? Well, our partners at Carolina Connection sat down with one member of the 1963 legislature. Tune into Carolina Connection this Saturday morning at 8:30 on WCHL 1360 AM.
Well, if you're one of the almost 1 billion Facebook users, you're probably seeing more and more changes to the website, as we talked about a few weeks ago. Frequent users of Facebook continue to see additions like the mini newsfeed, which provides live updates of friend activities. A new feature called Timeline puts your entire life on the screen with pictures, friend comments, and important dates. Facebook is introducing these new features in phases. Homecoming King and Queen campaigns are well underway on campus this week. Candidates are trying to gain support in the pit with signs and slogans. They're encouraging students to vote this coming Friday. The top 3 male and female candidates will advance, but since only 3 women are running this year, this week's vote is all about the guys. You can find the link to vote for your favorite candidate on our website, carolinaweek.org. Now, one of our very own volunteers here at Carolina Week, Clint Hanna, is running for King. Well, twice a year, country and bluegrass music lovers gather at the Shikori Hills Grassroots Festival in Chatham County.
That's about 15 minutes outside Chapel Hill, so our reporter Laura Barone was there for the music and the fun.
He goes by the letter T Lassiter, and he is Shikori Hill's #1 fan. He and his bluegrass band were here for the first festival 8 years ago. They've come back every year since then.
It's like coming home. You just get to see all these people. It's a reunion every time you come. We've been camping with the same people for years. We cook together, we party together, we play music together. It's just a great place.
And T isn't the only one to enjoy this community feeling. Like every year, Tori Beek drove from Chapel Hill to get his shot of bluegrass and country.
I think that everyone who comes here is kind of after the same thing and just enjoying the simpler things in life, like a sunny day and nice music.
I feel like I could give anyone here a hug and they'd be just fine with that.
More than 60 bands attended the festival this year, and about 7,000 people were here to applaud.
Honestly, one of the best things about Shikori is you don't know about any of the bands that are playing. So I knew maybe 1 or 2 coming in, but I've never even heard this band, and they turn out to be fantastic.
But Shikori is not only about music. Festival goers can enjoy different kinds of activities and games, such as this giant chessboard. For T, there is simply no better place to be.
Shikori is like something you only read about. You never see a fight, never hear any cussing or ugliness. It's just a wonderful place.
I am Laure Baron for Carolina Week.
Well, that looks like a lot of fun, a lot of nice weather out there too.
A lot of nice weather. Hopefully that can continue for family weekend this weekend, but our weathercaster Tom Miners will let us know next.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent, because kids in foster care don't need perfection. They need you.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Carolina Week. I'm meteorologist Tom Miners, and I'd love to start off with some headlines for tonight.
We're going to be taking a look at some of the rainfall totals that have been happening in the area. There's been a lot of rain in the past 24 hours. We're also going to show you that there's going to be some warmer weather coming into our area later this week for Family Weekend. And then we're going to show you a preview for the fall break forecast, as we're going to be seeing fall break come in very quickly. But first, we want to start off with those rain totals. As you can see on our map here, we've got a map showing you where the precipitation has been falling over the past 24 hours in the southeast region of America. And so what we're showing here is that the western part of the North Carolina state has been seeing a lot more precipitation fall in that area. And as we show you on the totals map, we can show you here these cities like Greensboro has 2.6 inches of rain in the past 24 hours. Winston-Salem has 1.68 inches. And as you go further east, it's a little bit more drier, not as much rain, even to our area in Chapel Hill, where we had 32/100ths of an inch in the past 24 hours today. And we can show you on the satellite image where all that stuff came from. You can see here these clouds are all associated with all that rain. And we have a frontal boundary layer that's moving right through here, which is basically the area where the cold air mass is. And you can see that on our radar that's where all this precipitation has been coming from. So we saw a lot of rain today, but we're going to start seeing some clearing going up. And we'll show you that on our surface map right here. Take a look at this. You can see the high pressure system right here that's located just north of Alabama has been battling these low pressure systems, and that precipitation is going to move out into tomorrow. We're going to see on this surface map, we're going to be battling with this new cold front that's going to be moving into our area. And these low pressure systems are going to slowly be moving into our area, which, by the way, low pressure systems are just basically areas of convergence where all that precipitation is associated with. So as far as the temperatures go for tomorrow for the highs, you're going to see a lot of low to mid 70s for the temperatures in the area on the western half of the North Carolina state. As you go east, though, it's a lot warmer, and that's because of that frontal boundary layer that's there. So in the temperatures like Goldsboro, 80 degrees, 81 in Wilmington, and 80 in Rocky Mount, it's going to be a little bit warmer out there. As far as the soccer game, women's soccer game goes for tomorrow, we're going to be seeing temperatures start out at about 72 degrees at game time. But we're not sure if that game's going to be played or not, depending on how the rain goes. We might see a little bit more rainfall tomorrow, and we're going to be monitoring that soon as we see if that game goes on or not. As far as the forecast for tonight goes, we're going to be seeing chilly temperatures, 58. If you do go outside in that rain, it's going to be chilly, so make sure you put a rain jacket and a heavy jacket out there. There's going to be some chilly air out there. And then I have 74 degrees tomorrow, as we're going to see a little bit warming, but still that rain is going to be heavy at times, so we're going to make sure to monitor that in the weekend as we go on. But as you can see here on our 5-day forecast, we're going to be seeing some clearing out go on. 74 for the high tomorrow, Friday 76, and then 77 on Saturday during family weekend. So I think we're going to be experiencing some clearer skies coming out there, but just for now, you're just going to need to keep that umbrella handy.
All right, well, we appreciate you letting us know that family weekend's going to be beautiful.
Some good news.
Yeah, but it's staying cooler, which I appreciate a lot, not too hot. And that rain finally going away?
Rain's finally going away. We should have a dry fall break, hopefully.
All right, well, we appreciate you helping us out. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Looks like it's going to be great football weather, and Sierra Watkins is going to take a look at what the football team can do to improve the second half of the season. That's just ahead.
Rosita, did you know there's a right way to sneeze? Let's show them, Elmo. Got it. When you feel like your nose needs to clear it at you, this is how you act. This is what you do. Lift your arm up high, bend it toward your face. Sneeze right there in the bendy place. Achoo! Achoo! You can do it with ease. Achoo! Achoo! That's the right way to sneeze. Thank you.
To learn more about preventing flu, visit flu.gov.
Every child is curious. George, look what I found. Turn their curiosity into a lifelong love of learning. That's a periscope. It's one of the most important gifts you can share. Create a curious reader. Oh, you want to build a castle like that one? This is super bedtime reading. Share a book together today. Visit read.gov.
Nice. Yes, go! Yes, yes! No! Come on!
Oops.
Yeah, sure.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Moms everywhere are finding ways to keep kids active and healthy.
Works every time.
Get ideas, get involved, get going at letsmove.gov.
Welcome back to Carolina Week. In sports, I'm Sierra Watkins. It's about time for college basketball, and coming up this Friday, the Tar Heels kick off their season at Late Night with Roy. If you're heading into the Dean Dome Friday night to watch the Heels show off their dancing and talent on the court like last year, you'll definitely have lots to watch. This team returns all 5 starters from last year's Elite 8 run and enters the year as preseason number 1. Carolina is the first school with 4 players on the John Wooden preseason list. That's the 50 best returning college players in the country: Barnes, Henson, Zeller, and Marshall. And late night is your first look at the top freshman recruits. And as you'd expect, lots of pressure on this team because they're so stacked entering the season. But Friday night, it'll be more about the fun. Switching sports to football, the football team's headed into an ACC matchup against Miami on Saturday. The Canes crushed the Heels in last year's game 33-10 in South Florida, but last time Miami was in Chapel Hill, Greg Little, who you see there on the touchdown, and the Heels won 33-24. Kendrick Burney led UNC to victory with 3 interceptions. There you see him returning one of those picks. The Heels hope to force inconsistent Miami quarterback Ja'Cory Harris into some more turnovers as they try to become bowl eligible for the 4th straight year. This weekend's game against Miami will mark the start of the second half of the Heels season. Reporter Andy Reeves takes a look at what we've seen through 6 games and what to expect moving forward.
Everett Withers' UNC Tar Heels are 5-1. You couldn't ask for much more, right? Well, while the Heels have been racking up the wins, they've hardly been convincing. Their 3 wins against major conference opponents all came down to the wire, and sloppy play is to blame.
People talk about ugly wins. A win is a W, and if you can go back and correct and get better each week, that's the bottom line.
But Carolina hasn't really been getting better. New problems appear each week. Turnovers, yards allowed, and time of possession have all been areas of concern. That's easy to say when you win the games you're supposed to, but the Heels are heading into a backloaded second half, including road games against ranked opponents Clemson and Virginia Tech.
The FCS schools are saying to the big schools, hey, we know how much.
Radio show host David Glenn told us before the season Withers would have to lead this team well beyond expectations to lock up the head coaching job.
If you go out there and go 10-2, well, then you could push your name into the conversation pretty convincingly.
Withers is exactly halfway there, but another 5-1 stretch depends on the Heels' ability to play near flawless football. Withers believes they're on their way.
We don't talk about one game here, one game there. We talk about the journey. Just play each game, try to get better each week, and at the end of the year, we'll see where it all, ends.
Including his coaching career. In Chapel Hill, I'm Andy Reeves, Carolina Week.
Now, if the Heels win on Saturday, they'll be 6-1 for the first time since 1997. That's back when Mac Brown was the head coach.
So, and I think you said something about we could be going to a bowl game if they win.
We could be bowl eligible if we have 6 wins.
We'll be cheering them on this weekend. Thanks, Sierra.
Thanks, Preston.
Well, it's not only football season, it's also that time of year for lots of fried food.
Kathleen, you know my weakness. Coming up, we'll tell you where to find it.
If you have a story idea, call Carolina Week at 919-843-8292 or email us at carolinaweek@unc.edu. If you have questions about this program, write Carolina Week at Campus Box 3365, UNC-CH, Chapel Hill, North Carolina 27599. Be sure to check out Carolina Week and Carolina Connection online at carolinaweek.org.
When you earn your GED diploma, the barriers in your life fall. Take the first step and get free GED information in your area at 1-877-38-YOUR-GED or yourged.org. Earn your GED diploma and begin your brighter future.
When I was a kid growing up, I actually was bullied so bad I had to leave school in 8th grade and go to another school.
A safe space is a place where nobody judges you, where you're safe from bullying or from anything that you think is bad and that you don't want to go through, or your friends or your family. Every student deserves to have a safe space at school.
We need to put an end to bullying now.
Please visit safespacekit.com. Help us put a safe space kit in every school in America.
The North Carolina State Fair opens tomorrow, and we will be there again this year. Reporter Lindsay Hawkins will be there to check out everyone's favorite part about the fair, the food. Last year, she tested out the Krispy Kreme burger. Watch her take a big bite. Yeah, Lindsay. Join us Monday at 5 to see what crazy fried food she finds this year. Now, I can already taste the fried Snickers bars, even the fried Kool-Aid.
You know what? I'm not sure I ever want to taste those things, but I'm going to the fair for my very first time this year, and I'm a little nervous. Do I have to try the Krispy Kreme burger?
You have to.
All right, well, thanks for watching.